Under Augustus, Rome stands radiant, a beacon of civilization. Its legions, the sword of order. Its laws, the measure of justice. But no empire, no matter how mighty, can stop the passage of time. When Augustus dies, his successors inherit not only his throne but the impossible task of maintaining what he built. Some rise to the challenge. Others nearly destroy it. Tiberius, the reluctant heir, rules with suspicion and fear. Caligula follows, a man whose madness becomes legend. The emperor who names his horse a consul and drenches Rome in terror. Claudius restores order, expanding the empire into Britain, but his reign ends in poison. Then comes Nero, artist, tyrant, and arsonist. Under his watch, Rome burns, and as flames consume the city, the emperor plays his lyre. The people revolt, the legions rebel, and the Julio-Claudian dynasty collapses in blood and fire. The year 69 AD becomes known as the year of the four emperors, Otho, Vitellius, and finally, Vespasian. For men who fight for the throne, only one surviving. From the chaos emerges stability once more. The Flavian dynasty rebuilds Rome, raising monuments to glory and conquest. The Colosseum opens its gates, where gladiators fight and die for the entertainment of the masses. To the crowd, the games are spectacle. To the emperors, they are control. Bread and circuses keep the people docile, while the empire marches on. Under the five good emperors, Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus, Pius, and Marcus Aurelius, Rome reaches its zenith. Trajan expands the empire to its greatest extent, conquering Dacia and bringing home unimaginable wealth. Hadrian, the philosopher emperor, builds walls instead of empires, visioning Rome's boundaries and fortifying its edge. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic, rules with wisdom, writing words that will outlive the empire itself. But Assidius, he leaves power to his son Commodus, a man of vanity and violence. With him, the Golden Age ends. The 3rd century brings crisis upon crisis. Emperors rise and fall like waves, some reigning only days before being struck down by rivals or their own soldiers. Barbarian invasions, plagues, and economic collapse ravage the empire. The legions, once Rome's pride, now tear it apart for control of the throne. Between 235 and 284 AD, more than 20 emperors will rule, most dying by the sword. Yet, Rome refuses to fall. It endures through sheer resilience, through the stubborn strength of its people and the legacy of its laws. In 284 AD, one man seizes power and restores order. He divides the empire in two, ruling the East himself and appointing a co-emperor to rule the West. His reforms bring stability, but at a cost. The empire is now too vast to be won. When he abdicates, his system collapses into war once more. From the chaos emerges Constantine the Great. He defeats his rivals and reunites the empire under one rule. In 312 AD, before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, he looks to the sky and sees a vision, a cross of light, and towards in this sign, conquer. He wins, converts to Christianity, and reshapes Rome forever. The faith once persecuted now becomes the empire's soul. He builds a new capital, Constantinople, in the east, a city destined to outlast Rome itself. But even Constantine cannot stop the tide of change. The empire is now two halves, the rich, stable east, and the decaying west. Rome, once the eternal city, begins to crumble. Corruption spreads, borders collapse, and enemies press harder than ever. From the forests of the north come the Goths, the Vandals, the Huns tribes once feared, now unstoppable. In 378 AD, at the Battle of Adrianople, the Roman army suffers a catastrophic defeat. The Goths annihilate the legions, and for the first time in centuries, the myth of Roman invincibility is shattered. The empire staggers but still stands, ruled by Theodore, the last emperor to command both east and west. When he dies in 395, his sons divide the empire permanently. The West, plagued by corruption and debt, begins its long, slow death. In 410 AD, the impossible happens. The Visigoths, led by Pax Rome. For the first time in 800 years, the city falls to an enemy. Shock and disbelief echo across the world. St. Jerome writes, "The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken. Yet even in ruin, Rome endures. Emperors still rule from Ravenna. Generals still fight to hold the frontier. But the heart of the empire is failing. The Vandals strike from Africa. The Huns thunder across the plains. And famine, plague, and despair consume what remains." In 476 AD, a Germanic general named Odoacer deposes the last Roman emperor of the West, Romulus, a child no older than 16. The Western Roman Empire is gone. The city that once ruled the known world now lies in quiet decay. Its marble cracked, its people scattered. But the story does not end here. In the east, the empire lives on. Constantinople, the new Rome, becomes the jewel of the Mediterranean. Its emperors call themselves Romans. Its armies fight under Roman banners. Its culture a fusion of Greek faith and Roman order. For 1,000 more years, the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, will carry the torch of Rome. Under Justinian in the 6th century, it shines. He dreams of restoring the old empire, sending his general Belisarius to reconquer lost lands. North Africa, Italy, and parts of Spain fall once more under the Roman eagle. The Hagia Sophia rests, its golden dome, a symbol of divine glory. For a moment, it seems that Rome's legacy will be eternal. But history is never still. New powers rise: Persians, Arabs, Turks, and the empire is forced to fight on all fronts. Slowly, it is worn down. Provinces fall, armies vanish, and the once great city of Constantinople becomes a fortress surrounded by enemies. In 1453, after centuries of siege and struggle, the final act begins. The Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II gathers his armies, hundreds of ships, cannons larger than anything seen before, and tens of thousands of soldiers. The defenders of Constantinople, led by Emperor Constantine XI, are few, but they stand as the last Romans. For 53 days, the city resists, its walls trembling under bombardment, its people praying for a miracle that never comes. On May 29, 1453, the Ottomans breach the walls. The emperor fights to the end, his sword in hand, disappearing into legend. The city falls, and with it, the last shadow of Rome. The empire that began with a shepherd's hut on the Tiber, that conquered the world, that gave law, language, and faith to civilization, finally ends. But in truth, Rome never truly dies. Its legacy lives in every language derived from Latin, in every government that borrows from its laws, in every monument that echoes its grandeur. The Roman Empire became not just a place, but an idea that through order and courage, mankind can reach greatness, and that even in ruin, greatness leaves a mark. From the myth of Romulus and Remus to the fall of Constantinople, the story of Rome is the story of humanity itself, of ambition and power, of glory and decay, of creation and destruction. Empires rise and fall, but Rome endures in memory, in stone, and in spirit. The eternal city may have lost its crown, but its shadow still stretches across the centuries, whispering the same eternal truth, that all greatness comes with a price, and that even in the ashes of empire, the flame of Rome still burns. When Peter the Great dies, in 1725, his empire stands vast, but uncertain. His reforms have torn the old order apart, leaving a country caught between two worlds. One foot in the modern age, the other still chained to feudal darkness. The struggle for power that follows is fierce and bloody, as noble factions fight to control the throne. But out of the chaos emerges a woman who will define an era, a foreign-born princess, with ambition as boundless as Russia itself. Her name is Catherine. Born in the small German principality of Anhalt-Zerbst, she marries the unstable Peter III, grandson of Peter the Great. But when her husband's madness threatens the crown, Catherine moves swiftly. In 1762, she seizes power in a coup, becoming Empress of all Russia. History will call her Catherine the Great. She rules not with hesitation, but with vision. Under her reign, Russia becomes a beacon of enlightenment in the East. She invites philosophers, sponsors art, science, and education. She dreams of turning her empire into a new Athens, a land of reason and grandeur. Yet she rules with an iron will. When rebellion flares in the vast steppes under Yemilian Pugachev, Catherine crushes it without mercy. Her armies expand the empire further than ever before, into the Black Sea, Crimea, and the heart of Poland. Russian banners fly from the Baltic to the Caucasus. But as the empire grows, so too does its darkness. Millions of peasants remain serfs, bound to the land like slaves. Beneath the glittering palaces of St. Petersburg, misery festers. The cracks in Russia's golden facade begin to show. Catherine dies in 1796, leaving behind a colossal empire. Powerful, cultured, and feared, but fragile at its core. Her successors struggle to hold her vision together. Paul I, her son, rules with paranoia and cruelty until his own officers turn against him. In 1801, he is murdered in his palace. His son, Alexander I, inherits the crown, young and idealistic. The world he enters is changing. Revolution has swept across Europe, and one man threatens to dominate it all: Napoleon Bonaparte. When the French emperor invades Russia in 1812, he brings with him the might of half of Europe, minus 600,000 men marching toward Moscow. But Russia does not break. The Tsar's armies retreat, burning everything in their path. Villages, crops, entire cities, all consumed by fire. Napoleon reaches Moscow, but the city is empty, silent, burning. Winter comes, the temperature drops below freezing, and the once great Grand Army begins to die in the snow. Only a fraction returns. It is Russia's revenge, and Europe will never forget. Alexander emerges as the savior of Europe, riding into Paris in 1814 as conqueror. But glory fades quickly. At home, the ideals of liberty that defeated Napoleon begin to take root in the hearts of young Russian officers. They return from Europe with new dreams, dreams of freedom, of a constitution, of an end to tyranny. In December 1825, they rise against the new Tsar, Nicholas I. The Decembrist revolt fails. The rebels are executed or sent to Siberia, but their dream will live on. Nicholas I tightens his grip. His empire becomes a machine of order and obedience, built on censorship, secret policy, and absolute power. Russia expands into the Caucasus and Central Asia, but beneath the iron facade, unrest simmers. When the Crimean War erupts in 1853, the old empire meets the modern world and loses. The defeat shocks Russia to its core. The Tsar, who follows, Alexander II, knows change is inevitable. In 1861, he signs the Emancipation Manifesto, freeing 20 million serfs. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Russian peasant stands free, but poor, landless, and betrayed. The dream of freedom quickly turns to disillusionment. Revolutionary whispers echo across the empire. Students, writers, and workers form secret societies, plotting to end the Tsarist order. In 1881, Alexander II is killed by a bomb in the streets of St. Petersburg. His blood stains the snow, a warning of what is to come. His successors retreat from reform, clinging to the past as the world races forward. Under Alexander III and Nicholas II, Russia becomes a land of contradictions, palaces, and poverty, splendor and suffering. The empire stretches from the Baltic to the Pacific, yet its people grow restless. In 1904, war with Japan erupts. The mighty Russian fleet sails halfway around the world, only to be destroyed at Tsushima. Humiliation breeds anger. The following year, 1905, peaceful protesters marched to the Winter Palace, carrying icons and petitions. They seek justice, not revolution. The Tsar's guards open fire, bloodstains the snow once more. Hundreds die in the massacre that will be remembered as Bloody Sunday. Across the empire, strikes and mutinies erupt. The Tsar grants a constitution and creates the Duma, a parliament, but his promises are hollow. The revolution subsides, but its spirit survives. waiting for its moment. That moment comes in 1914. Europe descends into war once again. Russia marches proudly into the Great War beside its allies. Millions of men sent to fight in the trenches of the Eastern Front. But the old empire is not ready for the storm. Its armies are ill-equipped, its people starving, its faith in the Tsar fading. As the war drags on, the cost becomes unbearable. In the cities, bread runs out. In the countryside, peasants seize the land. On the front lines, soldiers begin to question why they fight. In the shadows of power, whispers grow louder of revolution, of betrayal, of destiny. In the midst of the chaos stands one man who seems to hold the royal family in his grip, a wandering mystic named Rasputin. To some, he is a holy man. To others, a devil. His influence over Tsarina Alexandra becomes a national scandal, and when his power threatens to bring the empire down, conspirators strike. They poison him, shoot him, drown him. But the empire he haunts is already dying. In February 1917, protests erupt in Petrograd. Workers, soldiers, and peasants flood the streets. The army mutinies. The Duma turns against the Tsar. After 300 years, the Romanov dynasty falls. Nicholas II abdicates the throne, ending an empire that began with Rurik more than 1,000 years before. The old order collapses, and from its ruins, a new and terrible force begins to rise. The Bolsheviks seize power in October, promising peace, land, and bread. Civil war follows. Brother fights brother. Cities burn, and the red flag rises over the Kremlin. The Tsar and his family are executed in a cellar in Yekaterinburg, their dynasty erased in blood and silence. From the mists of the north to the fire of revolution, the story of Russia is one of survival, of a people forged by hardship, reborn through struggle, and bound by destiny to endure. From Rurik's sword to the roar of the revolution, one truth remains. Russia does not fall. It transforms, reshapes, and rises again, vast, eternal, and unbroken.